highway this Labor Day, you won't be alone. As summer winds down, millions of cars are expected to be on the road today. This summer has already seen an uptick in overall travel. Many experts point to the booming economy and low unemployment rates for the increase in vacationers. AAA says 35 million Americans will be traveling over 50 miles this weekend, which is a 5% increase from last year. 16.5 million of those will be airline travel, which is up 3.5% from last year.
Summer is synonymous with vacations. It's a pastime people don't want to give up. And when the economy is performing better, which we're seeing now, and people have a little bit more change in their pockets, they're inclined to spend that on travel.
Labor Day is the 5th most traveled holiday each year, with the end-of-year combination of Christmas and New Year's topping the list. Historically, Labor Day sees a drop in national gas prices. This is attributed to the lack of demand after the summer, stable crude oil prices, and the switch over to the cheaper winter blend gasoline. This weekend actually began with the highest gas prices for a Labor Day holiday in the past 4 years, with a national average of $2.83. But that number is expected to go down to about $2.70 a gallon this fall. Businesses are also looking forward to this high consumer confidence and low gas prices as we head into the holiday spending season because, remember, we are only 16 weeks away from Christmas. In New York, Laura Engel, Fox News.
Laura, why you got to remind me that we're 16 weeks away from Christmas? Really? Oh, man. Have anybody out there started drinking those pumpkin spice lattes and other fall flavors? You started decorating for fall, Halloween yet? Some people are like really into that stuff. Some people see it as like a stress reliever. Other people, they're just really into the fall season that kind of transitions into winter and the holidays, you know, Thanksgiving and Christmas and everything. As for me, I'm going to enjoy September. Once we hit October, then I'll start doing some decorating for Halloween. I am pretty spirited myself, so I'll get there eventually. Okay, I told you we were kind of on a roller coaster today. We have some happy stories, some sad stories. This next top story for you is to get us all caught up to date on exactly what happened and the latest with that deadly New Mexico Greyhound bus crash.
Federal and local teams continuing their investigation into last week's fatal crash between a semi-truck and a Greyhound bus. 8 people on the bus, including the driver, were killed when the tractor-trailer's front tire blew out, forcing the truck to cross the median and slam head-on into the bus.
We're looking at, how this roadway, how its approach, how the median, how the depression into that median may have affected the dynamics of that vehicle or that vehicle's movement.
Over the weekend, the National Transportation Safety Board announcing a more in-depth investigation. Both of the semi's front tires are in Washington for a closer inspection, and officials are hoping to speak with the truck's driver, who is among the dozens injured.
We have subpoenaed information for blood, for toxicological purposes.
They really just don't know what's going on, where she's at, how she's doing.
Sadly, this family did not receive good news. The caller's mom, 50-year-old Sadie Thomas, and 4 other victims were identified over the weekend. But Christy Westerdale got better news. Despite suffering a broken leg, shattered knee, and separated pelvis, the pregnant bus passenger delivered twins 2 hours after the accident, 2 months early.
I just thank God that my babies are okay. I just can't believe they're so strong through it all.
The twins will remain in a New Mexico hospital for several months while they recover. Once they're medically cleared, they can go home to Stockton, California. In Los Angeles, Alicia Acuna, Fox News.
All right, everybody, so that's the latest there out of New Mexico. We're going to take you now to a little bit of a, I don't know if you want to say lighter story. It's about a jet ski that kind of got out of control and it slammed into a boat. So very serious. You got to be safe when you're on the water, right? Let's get up to date with what happened here.
A terrifying moment.
Absolute fear.
All caught on camera.
Oh my God. Just the first
impact of being hit and the shock of it happening.
A normal day on the lake for Leah Pryor and her family quickly took a turn for the worse back in July.
Once we got on the lake, from being on shore for a while, there were some jet skiers that started to jump the wake behind the boat.
Video captured on Leah's cell phone show the moment of impact.
Oh my God.
After she says a jet ski came uncomfortably close before striking the side of her boat, leaving a hole.
Our boys were sitting in the front bow of the boat, thank God. But it was a matter of now we've got to quickly get this boat off the water without taking on any more water than we already were.
Luckily, no one on the boat was injured, but Leah says they did find the jet skier who hit the boat.
You know, he didn't have insurance.
California state parks officials say they're urging people to be safe and follow rules, including wearing a life vest while out on the water.
Oh my God.
So if you happen to be in the middle of an accident like this, you're better prepared.
Well, you have to be looking out for people who are not going to be as smart about being on the waterways as maybe you will.
Wow. I'm going to say, everybody, I don't think I was prepared for that story, but it kind of does help reinforce water safety there, and just absolutely frightening, the video as well. Even though the incident happened a while ago, that was not the lighter story that I thought that it could have been. All right, so this next story, it's about, you know, you may have some feuds with your neighbors, but this one man in Los Angeles was so upset that he threw something on his neighbor's car that you might not expect.
Hard to believe and caught on camera. Joseph Blum's white SUV being doused with a jug of urine in the middle of the night in his own driveway.
How does anybody do such a thing? How does any logical person do such a thing?
The 72-year-old Thousand Oaks resident has lived in this neighborhood for 42 years.
Living in fear is not a happy thing to do. And I have my car, it's now totaled.
Detectives with the Thousand Oaks Police Department say the man in the video is Joseph's next-door neighbor, 55-year-old James Pearson.
Why me? I have no clue. I'm the next-door neighbor.
Mr. Pearson? Pearson and his wife didn't appear to be home on Friday to answer our questions, but their longtime neighbors had plenty to say.
This is not the first time. He's been busted here several times. I would say 12 times in the last maybe 10 years. I mean, the guy is just absolutely nuts. I think the guy's a mental case.
We've dealt with them for a very long time, and they've had somebody living in their backyard in a tent and defecating out there in the yard, and the neighbors can smell it. So, and it's not just that.
Neighbors also remember a time when Joseph's car was keyed and urine was poured on his front porch, which prompted him to install this motion camera that captured this.
One of them pieces, I can come out of my house, feel comfortable. Somebody urinated on your car, you think no matter what the insurance company could do to it, do you think you want to go back into that?
And that car locked up in the garage here behind me. Damage amounts to about $2,000, but for Joseph, the car is a total loss. He says he can't be around any sort of bacteria given the fact that he's recovering from open heart surgery. As for his neighbor, Pearson, now facing several charges tonight, including elder abuse and also vandalism. Police say they searched his home, found evidence in the crime and evidence of meth use. In Thousand Oaks, Matt Johnson, Fox 11 News.
All right, well, you just got the latest there with the charges. This other one, this next story I have for you, top story, is another neighbor feud about a shooting over a lawn mower or yard services. Let's watch. All right. Looks like this is just video, not a full-blown story.
He pulled the pistol out as I was coming just right along here and shot at that culvert over there and then turned the pistol at me, at which point in time I turned around, beeline to the edge of the house so he couldn't shoot me. He fired at me.
All right, everybody, I think that it has something to do with the audio here for this story, but again, a man was shot while mowing a lawn. And as soon as I can find the details for you, I'll get you all caught up to speed. Meanwhile, let's get to our next top story. What about the midterm hurdles that await? Let's watch.
After a week mourning the death of Senator John McCain, attention shifts to who might replace him in the Senate. The governor of Arizona, Doug Ducey, said he would wait until after funeral services to appoint someone to fill the seat until 2020. Some names that have surfaced include the late senator's widow, Cindy McCain, and John Kyle, a former U.S. senator.
The Arizona governor is going to have to name a replacement for Senator John McCain in the next few days. Arizona, which is a state that Democrats are really keeping an eye on.
Democrats are optimistic about support from Hispanic voters turned off by President Trump's stance on immigration.
It could shape the way that state looks in political campaigns, not just for these midterms, but in the 2020 presidential election as well.
Florida is also wielding influence in the midterms, and its race for governor is in the spotlight. Trump-backed Republican Ron DeSantis will face off against the Democratic mayor of Tallahassee, Andrew Gillum, who pulled off a surprise win in the primary.
This is going to become one of the most closely watched races in the fall campaign.
The Democratic Party has traditionally had the backing of African-American voters, but a recent Reuters Ipsos poll shows support is down 7 points since the 2012 election. Joy Piazza, Fox News.
All right, everybody, I found the details on the lawnmower story. So I'm just going to show you the video here while I read to you the details as to exactly what happened. It sounds like Indianapolis has its own version of the feuding Hatfields and McCoys. A 73-year-old man is facing charges for allegedly shooting at his neighbor in a dispute over lawn care. Police say Paul Kelly shot at his neighbor Homer Fawcett as Fawcett was using his riding mower. Fawcett says he quickly drove his mower to safety and called police. Kelly is facing a felony charge of criminal recklessness. He told officers he was shooting at a snake in the grass. Fawcett says Kelly shot at him because he doesn't like the way Fawcett cuts his grass. Authorities say 10 days before this incident, Fawcett told them Kelly had threatened to kill him 8 or 9 different times. So it sounds like it has nothing to do with the alleged shooter's lawn care, but just doesn't like exactly how the neighbor cuts his grass, right? That's at least what it sounds like to me. What do y'all think about that? Okay, so this next story, very sad. We're going to continue this roller coaster Labor Day Monday, and it's normally we try to like arrange the stories in a way that kind of makes sense. You start with like political news and sad news, happy news, like to end on the good note, right, with like animal stories, things like that, a little bit lighter nature. Today, a little difficult to do that because of the mix of stories that came in. So this next one is about a dad who died while shielding his son from gunfire.
I think he had any idea what was going to happen.
Even in the chaos of gunfire, this father's love was impenetrable.
No, the hero was my grandson.
Dave Girardi says Anthony Reedus went to pick up his son from his ex-wife's home.
His former wife said, come out, but there's a squabble going on. He went over, took his son by the hand, headed back to his vehicle, and then shots started happening.
Girardi says Reedus used his own life to save his son's.
His little boy was shot, so he covered his body with his, and then he was killed many times in the back. They won't tell us how many times he was shot yet, but he was killed trying to do that.
In total, Girardi says Reedus and another man were killed. The boy, shot in the ankle, was taken to a hospital. An Aurora police officer shot and injured the shooter and was hit by a bullet as well. Now this family tries to make plans for the unimaginable.
There's no discussion about where would he want to be. He was too young, he was 26. You know, you don't say, gee, you know, when you die, where do you want to be buried? How do we know?
While the boy struggles to understand life without his dad.
They asked, you know, do you want to come home to my house? My daughter said, and he said, why? Dad's not there.
While Reedus used himself as a shield, Girardi says nothing can shield this family from this immense pain.
Oh man, talk about heartbreak, right? All right, I will try to end this top story segment on a happier note. I really will, because I have several more for you. This next one, though, another sad one. 15-year-old boy swept away in a storm drain.
Neighbors heard cries for help coming from a storm drain.
It's just unbelievable. You can't believe something like that's happening.
Police say a 15-year-old boy was sucked inside this drain pipe around 7 Friday night. It happened at Tamarisk Parkway and Melissa Drive off of North Hurstbourne Parkway. Neighbors say the boy was playing in his backyard when he slipped and was swept away.
It just happened in a blink of an eye.
The boy traveled through the drain underground and was pushed out into a yard down the block. He was found unconscious. He wasn't breathing and was rushed to Norton Children's Hospital. Trinity High School says he's a sophomore student. Letters of support are taped to his front door.
Everybody wants to know how they can help, how he's doing, and just seeing what we can do to support Mom in the meantime.
The culvert runs behind Michelle Stack's home. She says heavy rain fills it with feet of water quickly, gushing into the drain pipe, creating a safety hazard with no grate to block the opening.
It's something that needs to be looked at. Obviously, it's an issue, so we need to figure out what ways we can keep something like this from ever happening again.
Absolutely. It's all about learning the lessons there and preventing it from happening again. If you happen to know a veteran, you may have heard stories about how military service members dispose of trash and other things that need disposing of. This next story is about veterans talking about burn pit exposures and the dangers, and active U.S. military members as well.
Thousands of veterans were exposed to dangerous chemicals from burn pits, and many now say that they feel abandoned by the VA. I sat down with retired General David Petraeus. He recalls what these troops were dealing with while deployed during the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and what it was like seeing these burn pits firsthand among the many challenges he faced at the time. Take a listen. In 2007, General David Petraeus took command of the coalition forces in Iraq. To defeat the enemy, he launched a robust counterinsurgency campaign. But there was another threat: exposure to burn pits.
At that time, we weren't worried about burn pits. We were worried about just getting enough water for our troops in the really hot summer. We were looking forward to the time where we might get some real food.
The general also recalls how burn pits were used on military bases to crudely incinerate everything from trash to medical waste, and early in the war, even human waste. As you and I both know, burn pits were used to dispose of things like chemical solvents, human waste, medical waste, all kinds of things were basically thrown into these. It sounds like you were very aware of this while you were in command, and it was just something that had to be done.
Well, it was something that had to be done for a long period of time, but at a certain point, it set in that perhaps there's a better way of doing it. And so again, a number of us surfaced these issues, and incinerators were actually brought in some cases. And then there were even problems just getting incinerators to work.
I know that you're aware of the huge number of veterans who believe that after being exposed to burn pits, they became sick. Many of their claims have been denied by the VA. A lot of them said the same thing, that they don't regret the service they did for our country, but now they feel like they're being abandoned by the government. So what should be done to address these veterans' concerns now?
Well, we should meet our obligation to our veterans in this and many other cases as well. It's an issue of trying to determine with some degree of scientific rigor, was there an effect because of the exposure to the smoke from the burn pits? If so, again, what are the symptoms of that? What can we do now to mitigate the risk of what could transpire from this?
General Petraeus has thrown his support behind the campaign to improve assistance for our veterans. In July, he sent a letter to Congress urging them to back the Burn Pits Accountability Act, a recently introduced bipartisan bill. He writes, quote, "I know that you share the sense of obligation that virtually all Americans have to those who have stepped forward at a time of war." In New York, Leah Gabriel, Fox News.
That story that Leah just told there, you'll hear it from so many veterans time and time again as to what they did at military bases and when they were fighting wars across the world. Okay, I said I was going to try to end on a happier note, right? Okay, this next top story I have for you. Imagine having a friendship with a coworker. We all have them, right? Certain people that we work with, we just click, we just get along, we just chat inside, outside of work. But imagine finding out that that friend of yours is your father or your son.
Growing up, I always knew that I was adopted. It just never crossed my mind that I'd ever find my parents.
Nathan Boos says he's gone through his entire life never knowing who his biological parents were.
I was adopted right at birth, right out of Marshfield, is where I was born.
Nathan's adoptive parents knew who his biological parents were, but because Nathan never asked, they never told him. Until one day.
And my mom just happened to come by one day and said, Well, you're friends with your dad on Facebook.
After continuing this conversation with his adoptive mother, Nathan discovered his biological father is a truck driver, just like him. And that's when Nathan got curious.
She just went on my Facebook and went through my friends list and brought up his picture. And I said, get out of here.
Turns out, Nathan's biological father has been working at Rock Solid Transport in Chippewa Falls with Nathan for the past 2 years.
And I fell out of my seat.
He messaged me on Facebook one day and asked me if I knew his biological mother. And I'm like, yeah, that's my ex-wife. I about fell out of my seat. I'm like, oh my God.
Bob, who has 2 other children with his ex-wife, says the choice to give Nathan up for adoption was a difficult one, caused by financial stress.
Back then, I wasn't much of a dad. His biological mom had chosen the adopted parents. And like he said, because they were somewhat related. Distant cousins, I believe. But I didn't know that.
Both say they're excited to continue growing the friendship they already had.
Well, it's still kind of a shock. You know, and there's days I'm not sure exactly what to say or how to act. I mean, he is my son, but yet we didn't have that father-son relationship growing up, you know, and then we became working partners before we knew who we really were.
You know, we're just taking one day at a time, 1 mile at a time, as we say.
1 mile at a time. Wow, couldn't imagine. Okay, so any of you like the outdoors, nature, hiking, scenery, you know, skiing, mountain climbing, rock climbing, that sort of thing? Well, what if you combined the thrill of nature with a thrill ride? This next story is about a roller coaster built into a New Mexico mountain.
The calm takeoff and peaceful ride up are no indication of what's to come, but in a good way.
It's not scary. Not scary.
Just halfway through opening day, Ari and Kevin have ridden Purgatory's new Inferno mountain coaster 7 times.
It's super fun.
The coaster opened this weekend after crews worked for 8 months, building the 400-foot climb and 4,000-foot long track.
We thought it would be fun, and it was fun.
Like the Alpine Slide, one of Purgatory's other popular attractions, riders control their speed with levers on each side of the cart.
How fast do you think you were going? Full speed.
That being 25 miles per hour, but some riders say it feels a lot faster.
Pretty fast.
Unlike the slide, the coaster is hooked to the track and can keep running through the rain and winter season.
So if you want to go skiing and then take a break and hit the mountain coaster for a thrilling ride, you can do that too.
Kim Euler with Purgatory Resort says there isn't another coaster like this in the entire Southwest, and it's the steepest in America. Its 9 twists and turns take you through Aspen Glens. But the final one is the favorite, a panoramic turn far out over the mountain.
There's a 360 loop like right there, and it's so fun.
Giving riders amazing views and an adrenaline rush.
All right, I would ride it. What about you? We're taking a live look at the Arizona Department of Transportation camera off I-10 and 75th Avenue. Some people probably trying to come home, but I did just research that resort that she was talking about, so now I'm trying to figure out exactly where this was, because it said the story came from New Mexico, but now I'm looking it up. It opened up at Durango's Purgatory Resort in Colorado. So again, that mountain coaster, if you want to get on it, it's in Colorado. I would definitely do that roller coaster or get on that roller coaster. Hope you're having a great Labor Day, everybody. It is September 3rd, 2018. If anything breaks, we'll have you covered. We have live streams not just here in Arizona, but across the U.S. and sometimes even worldwide, depending on what's happening. Please do me a favor, click that subscribe button. If you haven't yet, you can then sign up for notifications and be alerted anytime we go live with breaking news. Again, you're watching News Now, part of Fox10Phoenix.com. We are on holiday mode and watch, taking a look for when this traffic starts picking up here in the valley.